You know this feeling. It comes on quietly, the way dusk slips into a room before you notice the light has changed. One moment you're moving through your day, tidying the counters, answering a small question, offering one more reassurance, and then suddenly something inside you goes dim. Not broken, not dramatic, just dim, as if the flame you've been tending for everyone else has been burning with borrowed fuel, and now the wick is down to thread. You tell yourself you're fine. You've always been the one who listens, the one who drives across town late at night, the one who keeps the peace when voices get sharp. You don't think of it as giving. You think of it as what you do, what love asks of you, and yet there's a strange hollowness in your chest afterward, a kind of quiet echo where your own voice should be. It shows up in small private moments. You hang up the phone after soothing someone through the same crisis you soothed last week, and the kitchen feels colder than it should. The refrigerator hums like it's the only thing awake. You stand there with your hand still hovering over the counter, realizing you have nothing left to offer yourself. The night around you is still, but inside there's a low murmur of depletion, the kind that doesn't announce itself until you're fully alone. And the ache isn't loud. That's the strange part. It's soft, almost polite, like a house whose door you forgot to close, letting in a draft that chills you only after an hour. You keep adjusting your sweater, adjusting your mood, adjusting your expectations, never quite admitting that the cold is coming from your own threshold being left open for too long. People you love lean on you because you make it easy. You've learned how to absorb their stories, soften their panic, quiet their storms. But every storm you quiet leaves a bit of its weather in you, a heaviness in the chest, a fog in the mind, a sense that something essential has slipped through your fingers while you were tending someone else's fire. You don't resent them. That's what confuses you. You simply feel emptied in a way that doesn't match the shape of your life. A subtle drainage, like water seeping through a hairline crack you can't quite find. And tonight, as you sit in your dim kitchen or your quiet bedroom, you can finally sense it. The weight you've been carrying is your own open door. You and I both know the pattern didn't start yesterday. It grew slowly, almost invisibly, the way ivy creeps up the side of a house. Quiet, patient, certain. One small act of kindness that felt natural, another that felt responsible, and then a dozen more that felt expected. Eventually, you weren't giving anymore. You were maintaining a role you didn't remember auditioning for. Somewhere along the way, you learned that being needed was safer than being loved. Needed meant you had a purpose. Loved felt uncertain, conditional, slippery. So you traded pieces of yourself for a sense of belonging, hoping no one would notice what it cost. We do this without thinking. We answer every call because the silence afterward feels dangerous. We offer help before it's requested, because waiting feels like rejection. We smile and say, "It's no trouble," while something in our chest tightens, knowing it is trouble, just not the kind we're allowed to name. There's an old memory you carry, though you rarely look at it directly. A moment when you were young and someone you depended on seemed distant, preoccupied, already slipping away. You didn't know how to hold them, so you learned to earn them. Be useful, be pleasant, be accommodating. And slowly, you began mistaking self-erasure for goodness. You feel it even now, in those little scenes that happen quietly throughout the week. You send a message, thoughtful and warm, and the day passes without a response. You tell yourself they're busy, that it doesn't matter, yet a small ache opens anyway. Or someone asks, "Are you sure you're okay?" And you nod without hesitation, because admitting the truth might change the entire balance of the relationship. Or maybe you catch yourself fixing a problem no one even asked you to fix, just to prove you still deserve your place in their life. We overgive because we fear the void that appears when we stop, the quiet that might reveal how little of ourselves we've kept, the possibility that without our usefulness we might simply be overlooked. But here's the recognition that arrives when the heart is tired enough to tell the truth. You've been trying to be loved by disappearing, and nothing disappears more loudly than that. There comes a moment when the truth appears, not with thunder, but with a soft, decisive click, like a door you didn't realize was open, swinging inward on its own, and you stand there, blinking, seeing the shape of your life in a new, cleaner light. You begin to notice how often your kindness has asked you to vanish, not dramatically, just a little at a time. You shrink a feeling here, silence a need there, soften your voice so someone else can stay comfortable. You smooth the air around others the way a hand smooths wrinkled fabric, forgetting that the hand wears thin long before the cloth does. It isn't malice that brought you here. It's the belief that goodness must cost you something, that love is proven by how much of yourself you're willing to forfeit. We inherit this idea the way we inherit old furniture, heavy, worn, carried from room to room without ever asking if it still belongs to us. And then one day you see it. You see that every time you rush to rescue someone, you were stepping out of your own life. Every time you swallowed your exhaustion, you were teaching others to do the same. Every time you lit yourself up for someone else, you dimmed a part of you that never quite returned to full brightness. It's a strange reversal. What you called generosity was often fear. What you called loyalty was often loneliness. What you called love was sometimes the quiet hope that if you were useful enough, you'd finally be safe. Imagine a lantern in a long hallway. It's meant to guide, to warm, to illuminate the path ahead. But if that lantern tries to light every room in the house at once, its flame stretches thin, flickering, unsteady. Not because it isn't bright, because it's being asked to do what no single flame can do. Even fire needs a boundary, a vessel, a shape to burn within. Kindness without limits becomes a leak. Compassion without rest becomes a wound. A giving that never returns to its source stops being giving at all. It becomes disappearance. And here, in this clarity, sadness meets relief. Because the truth is simple and startling. You were never meant to vanish to prove you care. There comes a time when you stop announcing your limits and simply live them. No speeches, no dramatic exits, no trembling apologies. Just a quiet shift inside you, the way a tide moves without asking permission from the shore. You begin to understand that peace isn't something you earn by exhausting yourself. It's something you allow. And the first sign of that allowance is silence. Clean, steady, unhurried silence. Not the cold silence of punishment, but the warm silence of someone returning to themselves. You don't slam doors anymore. You simply stop standing in doorways where you're drained. You don't argue about your worth. You just stop offering it to people who treat it like air, always available, always unnoticed. Your phone buzzes late in the evening, the same familiar name, the same familiar crisis. For years, you answered without hesitation. You let their storms spill into your living room, into your body, into the corners of your day that were meant to be gentle. But now the screen lights up, and you watch it from across the room. You hear the vibrations soften against the table. You breathe once, deeply, and let the call pass like weather you no longer need to step into. No anger, just an inward closing of a door that had been left open too long. And in that small refusal, you feel something unexpected, dignity, a sense that your life has edges again, that your time belongs to you, that your inner rooms are no longer public hallways for other people's emergencies. You notice it in the way you walk through your home. Your steps feel quieter, but firmer. The air feels lighter, as if the walls themselves are relieved. Your boundaries are not barricades. They are thresholds, inviting what nourishes and dimming the rest. There is love in this too, though it's a different kind than you were taught. Love that knows absence can be kinder than constant rescue. Love that trusts others to face their own nights without borrowing your daylight. You sit at the window for a while, listening to the faint movement of wind through the curtains, a reminder that even the softest things know how to say not now. Somewhere behind you, the house quiets. There is a kind of love that doesn't move toward people, but gently away. Not out of bitterness, not out of pride, but out of a wish to keep the whole picture from fraying. You begin to sense this when your heart is tired and your spirit has learned the cost of constant nearness. Imagine your inner life as a small, honest house. Not grand, not impressive, just a place where the light falls softly on the floor and everything inside has its rightful place. There is a chair by the window, a lamp that glows at dusk, a doorway that opens to the quiet outside. This house is you, your breath, your thoughts, your history, your peace. For years, you left the door unlatched. People wandered in with their troubles, their noise, their broken expectations. You welcomed them because you believed love required it. You believed the warmest house was the one with no boundaries. But over time you realized something subtle. The light inside your rooms began to thin. The air felt unsettled. The floorboards echoed with footsteps that weren't yours. And then one day, without ceremony, you closed the door, not to shut anyone out, but to keep the light in. Silence becomes part of the architecture now. It rests on the furniture. It moves through the hallways. It holds its shape like a gentle presence, reminding you that stillness has a purpose. This silence isn't distance, it's reverence, a way of saying, I honor what I have built, and I cannot let it be undone. People you love still exist just beyond the threshold. You can hear their voices on the other side, softened by the wood and the air between you. You care for them, perhaps even more than before, because now your care isn't frantic. It isn't born from fear or exhaustion. It flows from a steadier place, a quieter room inside you. You understand now that standing at your own doorway, present, calm, grounded, is a form of devotion. You are not withholding love. You are shaping it. You are letting it breathe, giving it space to remain whole. And as the lantern in your window glows gently through the evening, you feel it in your bones. Sometimes the kindest closeness is the space that protects the light. There is a moment, usually late in the day, when you realize nothing inside you is fighting anymore. No tug of war between guilt and desire. No quiet panic about who might be disappointed. Just a kind of spaciousness, like someone opened a window in a room that had been closed for years. This is release. Not an act you perform, but a settling. An unclenching of the places in you that worked too hard for too long. You sit with yourself the way you once sat with others. Attentive, patient, unhurried. You listen to your own breath and find it steadier than you remembered. You notice the absence of noise, the internal noise that used to remind you of every obligation, every unspoken demand, every pull on your spirit. The absence feels strange at first, like waking up in a house after the guests have gone home. But then, slowly, it becomes comforting. You begin to understand that you do not owe the world your exhaustion. You do not owe anyone your constant availability. You do not owe explanations for the ways you choose to stay whole. There's a soft astonishment in realizing how much of your life was shaped by fear. The fear of being forgotten, the fear of seeming unkind, the fear that stepping back would prove you unworthy. But now you see it clearly. Stepping back didn't diminish your love. It revealed its true weight. And that weight was never meant to be carried alone. Everything feels quieter now. Not empty. Quiet. A quiet that lets you hear your own thoughts again. A quiet that lets you feel the ground beneath your feet. A quiet that doesn't ask anything of you. The people who can meet you in this quiet will find their way. The ones who cannot will drift to their own necessary places. There is no punishment in this, no bitterness, only the natural movement of lives returning to balance. You close the door gently behind you, not to shut anyone out, but to finally stand inside your own life with both feet. Peace does not arrive with fanfare. It arrives when you no longer argue with yourself for choosing it. And in the hush that follows, one truth rises clear and steady. You are not pulling away. You are coming home.